Hey, Fintech homies, welcome back to another deep dive with us. You know how we do? We love to go deep into a topic.
We do.
So today we're going to dive into Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. It's like this classic, right?
Yeah.
All about like the law of success, and we're going to like see how it relates to finance, business, and investing.
It's a really good one.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many good nuggets in there.
So many good nuggets in there. So let's jump in. Um, it's based on like Hill's interviews with these titans of industry, like
Yeah.
Henry Ford,
Yeah, Alexander Graham Bell,
yeah, Alexander Graham Bell, all these like super successful people.
all those people that you think about when you think about success.
So it's like what can we learn from them?
Yeah.
So I guess the first principle that Hill talks about is this idea of burning desire. And it's not just like wanting something, it's like this intense drive.
Yeah, I think about this all the time. Like, what are you obsessed with? You know, what are the people in fintech obsessed with?
They're not just like interested in finance or technology, they're like consumed by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're thinking about it when they go to sleep, when they wake up in the morning. It's like an all-consuming passion.
And I think that that's what really drives people to like create these like groundbreaking innovations and really push the boundaries.
Yeah.
There's this really interesting story that Hill tells about a country doctor
Okay.
who stumbled upon this secret formula for a soft drink. And it wasn't like magic.
Right.
It was his like burning desire to like share this drink with the world.
It's kind of a basic concept, you know?
Yeah, and that's what turned it into like a massive success.
Yeah.
He called it his like enchanted kettle.
That's cute.
Yeah, I like that.
So I guess fintech homies, like, what are you passionate about?
What's that thing that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Like, is it building the next like killer app? Is it achieving financial freedom? Like, what's that thing that you're truly obsessed with?
Because that's what's gonna like fuel your success.
Not burning desire.
So now moving on to the next principle. Hill talks about faith.
Yeah.
And this is like the unwavering belief in yourself and your vision.
Like, even when no one else believes you.
Even when people are like doubting you,
Yeah.
right? It's like you have that gut feeling. You're like, no, this is going to work.
It's kind of like having conviction about your idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hill talks about this amazing story of Dr. Gonzalez and like his $1 million sermon.
Okay.
So he had this dream of building a world-class educational institution,
Okay.
but he needed $1 million, which like back then was an insane amount of money.
Oh, yeah.
Like an insane amount of money.
Right.
And so he had this unwavering faith in his vision. And so he preached a sermon called What I Would Do If I Had $1 Million.
Okay.
And he like poured his heart and soul into this sermon, like describing his vision with so much conviction that a wealthy businessman in the audience was so moved
Wow.
that he wrote him a check on the spot.
For the full amount.
For the full $1 million.
Oh, my God.
That's the power of faith.
It's amazing.
Like he literally preached his dream into reality.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, how can we cultivate that kind of faith? Like, how can we have that unwavering belief, especially when we're like facing uncertainty, when things are like a little bit shaky?
I think that's the thing. It's all about your mindset and how you think about things. It's
Yeah.
like you're not going to be successful without it.
Totally. And I think, you know, even in the world of fintech, like there are going to be ups and downs.
Absolutely.
There are going to be, you know, times when things are crazy and volatile.
It's so true.
And it's like, how do we hold on to that belief?
Mm.
Okay, so moving on to the next principle.
Yeah.
Hill talks about specialized knowledge.
Huh?
And you might think, like, oh, knowledge is power.
Right.
But Hill has kind of a different take on it.
He does.
He says that knowledge is only potential power.
Right. It's what you do with it.
It's what you do with it. And so he says it needs to be organized, it needs to be directed, and it needs to have a purpose.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of like you can have all the ingredients for a gourmet meal, but if you don't have the recipe or the skills to use those ingredients,
You're not going to make anything.
you're not going to end up with anything edible, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with knowledge.
Yeah, and especially in fintech, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's constantly changing.
Constantly.
It's like what you knew like 6 months ago might be completely irrelevant now.
It's so true.
So it's like how do we stay adaptable? How do we keep learning? How do
Absolutely.
we make sure that we're like at the cutting edge?
I think you have to be really intentional about what you learn and how you learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, it's not just about consuming information. It's about knowing what to consume.
It's about like being strategic about it.
Exactly.
So what kind of knowledge do you think is like essential?
Well, I think, maybe it's like mastering blockchain programming or like AI-driven financial modeling,
Yeah.
or even becoming like an expert in regulatory compliance.
Yeah, it's like you got to find that thing.
You gotta find your niche.
Find your niche and like dive deep.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this also ties in with like Hill's principle of the mastermind,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about later.
Right.
But it's like, we don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
It's like we can collaborate with others, we can share knowledge, and we can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Um, so Fintech homies, don't be afraid to specialize. Dive deep into a particular area of Fintech. Become like that go-to expert.
I love it.
And Hill actually debunked this myth of the self-made person.
Right, because there's really no such thing.
Yeah, like he pointed out that even like these brilliant minds like Thomas Edison,
Yeah.
Henry Ford,
Right.
they didn't achieve success in isolation.
They had communities.
Yeah.
They had people around them. They had mentors, advisors.
They were constantly like absorbing knowledge
Absolutely.
from others. And I think, it's so important to remember that like true power comes from collaboration
Yeah, it does.
and the sharing of knowledge, right? Like we're stronger together.
Definitely.
So this reminds me of like a few weeks ago when we talked about building a strong network in Fintech.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the more you connect with people who are passionate about the same things,
Right.
the more you can tap into that collective wisdom.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to another principle,
Yeah.
imagination.
This is a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good one.
And he emphasized both the synthetic and creative sides of imagination.
Yeah, and he even talked about how it's related to our sixth sense.
What?
Yeah, the sixth sense. So like, the synthetic imagination is kind of like taking what we already know and,
Yeah.
putting those ideas together in a different way.
Right, like rearranging the puzzle pieces.
Right. And then the creative imagination is like, okay, how do we do something completely new?
Yeah.
Like, how do we tap into that sense of intuition and come up with something completely groundbreaking?
Like that's the real magic.
That's the juice.
Yeah,
That's the stuff that makes things really exciting.
So are you exercising your imagination? Like, are you challenging the status quo? Are you thinking about, like, what if?
Like, what if we could do this? What if we could do that?
What if, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, think about blockchain.
Yeah.
Like, what if we could use it to revolutionize, like, cross-border payments, make them instant, make them almost free?
Right. Right.
Like, that's the power of imagination.
Absolutely.
And so the people who are daring to imagine the impossible, those are the ones who are going to shape the future.
So true.
And this leads us to like another principle,
Yeah.
which is organized planning.
That's my favorite.
Right. Like, it's great to have ideas, but you got to have a plan.
You got to have a plan.
So Hill was very adamant that wishful thinking
Yeah.
will only get you so far.
It won't get you anywhere, really.
It won't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You need concrete plans. You need like a roadmap to guide your actions.
I mean, think about it. Think about, if you want to go on a road trip,
Yeah.
you need a map.
You need a map. You need to know where you're going.
You got to know where you're going.
Yeah. And so he uses this example of Charles Schwab,
Okay.
who had this vision for like the future of the steel industry. And he didn't just have like a vague idea.
Right.
He had a detailed plan.
A step by step.
Yeah. And that ultimately led to the creation of U.S. Steel, which was like this massive corporation.
It was a behemoth.
It is a behemoth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hill's point is that your achievements can be no greater than the soundness of your plans.
Yeah.
And that's true whether you're building a fintech startup, whether you're launching a new product, whether you're just managing your personal finances.
Or even just like thinking about your day.
Yeah, like you need a plan.
You need a plan.
But like plans aren't meant to be set in stone.
Yeah. No, they're a starting point.
Yeah, it's like they should be flexible.
Adaptable.
Adaptable, because things change.
Things always change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he talks about like the story of Samuel Insull,
Okay.
who built a fortune in the utility industry. And he had these grand plans.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Great Depression hit and he had to pivot.
Oh, yeah.
He had to adjust his strategy to survive.
Got to adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a valuable lesson for all of us, especially in fintech,
I know.
where things are like changing so rapidly.
Like all the time.
Yeah. We need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to refine our plans.
And course correct when we need to.
Yeah. Course correct when we need to.
I like that.
And speaking of navigating uncertainty,
Yes.
let's talk about decision making.
Decision making.
Hill believed that the ability to make decisions quickly and decisively is crucial for overcoming fear.
Hmm.
And he told this like really compelling story about a man on death row
Okay.
who was surprisingly calm. And the reason why he was so calm was because he had made peace with his fate.
He had accepted it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so this brought him tranquility even in the face of death.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And so, think about it this way. Imagine you're like evaluating a potential investment in a new cryptocurrency, right?
Okay.
And you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to go up? Is it going to go down?
It's so volatile.
It's so volatile. And like that fear of losing money, it can paralyze you.
It really can.
Yeah. And so Hill's point is that just making a decision,
Yeah.
even if it's the wrong decision,
Can be freeing.
it can be freeing.
It can be.
You learn from it, you adapt, you move forward.
Absolutely.
Indecision breeds fear,
It does.
while decisive action empowers us to progress.
I love that.
So Fintech homies, what decisions are you putting off out of fear?
Like, what are those things that you're just like, ugh, I don't want to make this decision?
Yeah, and it's like, are you missing out on opportunities because you're afraid to make a move?
That's a really good question.
So, and this actually reminds me of what we talked about last month when we talked about managing risk in volatile markets.
Right.
And it's all about like calculated risks.
Right.
It's about like informed decisions.
Informed decisions.
And it's about having the courage to act.
Yeah.
Even when things are uncertain.
Even when you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to another principle,
Yeah.
persistence.
Persistence.
And this is like the understanding that setbacks are inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to happen,
They're going to happen.
but they're temporary.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. It's just like a bump in the road.
Little bump in the road.
Yeah. And he'll use this really inspiring example of Fannie Hurst, who was a writer who conquered Broadway
Okay.
through sheer persistence. Like, she faced countless rejections.
Real.
Countless rejections.
Wow.
But she never gave up.
And she made it.
And she made it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so, it's this reminder that the road to success in fintech, just like in any other field, is rarely smooth.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be easy.
It's never going to be easy. There are going to be bumps. There are going to be detours.
You're going to want to quit.
Yeah, you're going to want to quit. But it's during those challenging times that persistence becomes your greatest asset.
You got to just keep going.
Keep going, keep pushing.
Yeah.
So think about, like, all the successful fintech companies.
Right.
They didn't achieve success overnight.
Oh,
Years of, like, hard work, grinding, facing obstacles, but they persisted. They adapted, they iterated, and they ultimately triumphed.
They figured it out.
Yeah, they figured it out.
Yeah.
So, fintech homies, what obstacles are you facing?
What's holding you back?
Yeah, like what's that thing that's like testing your resolve?
Yeah.
And how can you use this principle of persistence to like overcome those obstacles and move closer to your goals?
Yeah, don't give up.
Yeah. And remember, success is rarely a straight line.
Yep.
It's a journey. It's got twists and turns. It's got like unexpected detours.
You gotta just keep going. You gotta just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about a principle that I think is like super important, especially for us as a community.
Oh, I love this.
The power of the mastermind.
The mastermind.
And he'll believe that no one achieves great things alone.
No.
It's like we need a supportive network.
People around us.
People around us, like a group of like-minded individuals who can challenge us.
Who can inspire us.
Who can inspire us.
Yeah.
And he called this the mastermind, like this synergistic alliance of minds working towards a common goal.
Like when you get those groups of people together, magic happens.
Magic happens, yeah.
Yeah.
And so like the best example of this is Henry Ford and his incredible circle of friends.
Oh my gosh, that crew.
Thomas Edison.
Harvey Firestone.
John
Burroughs.
John Burroughs, Luther Burbank.
They were the best.
Talk about a power squad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they met regularly. They bounced ideas off of each other. They supported each other. And they collectively achieved like greatness.
They did.
Yeah. And so like the fintech homies community, I see that as like an embodiment of this mastermind principle.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like we're here to connect with each other, to share ideas, to learn from each other's experiences, and to find support on our fintech journeys.
And we're stronger together.
You're stronger together, yeah. And so who are you connecting with in the fintech space?
Yeah. Who are those people in your life that are helping you?
Like who are your mentors? Who are your collaborators? Who are like your sounding boards?
Yeah, who are you talking to?
Yeah, because remember, everyone has something to offer.
Everyone does.
All right, so now we're going to circle back to the concept of imagination,
Okay.
but specifically this idea of the sixth sense,
The sixth sense.
which Hill believed was key to breakthrough ideas. And he emphasized that this sixth sense can be cultivated, it can be strengthened through practice.
It's not just like something you're born with.
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
You have to work it.
You got to work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the more you tap into your intuition, the more you trust your gut,
The stronger it gets.
the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, think about it, like you're evaluating a fintech investment, right? You've done all your due diligence.
You looked at the numbers.
You've looked at the numbers, but then there's this like feeling.
Yeah, your gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's your sixth sense talking.
That's your intuition.
Yeah. And so Hill actually used the example of Thomas Edison trying over 10,000 combinations
Wow.
before perfecting the light bulb.
He kept going.
He kept going.
He didn't give up.
He didn't give up. He kept experimenting. He kept listening to that inner voice, and then boom,
You got it.
breakthrough.
Breakthrough.
Yeah. And so it's this reminder that sometimes the most unconventional ideas,
Yeah.
the ones that like defy logic
Right.
or traditional thinking,
They're the ones that make the biggest impact.
those are the ones that lead to like the greatest innovations.
That's so true.
So don't dismiss your gut feelings.
Yeah, listen to them.
Explore them, test them, and see where they lead.
What's the worst that could happen?
All right, so now we're going to touch on a principle
Okay.
that might be a little bit controversial.
Okay. Let's hear it.
It's called the mystery of sex transmutation.
All right. This is a good one.
Yeah, and this is Hill's belief that sexual energy can be channeled into other creative pursuits, which can lead to like increased drive and focus.
Right.
Now, I know this one might raise some eyebrows,
It does.
but I think it's important to approach it with an open mind.
Absolutely.
And remember, Hill was writing in a different time,
Right.
and some of his ideas might seem a little bit outdated.
You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, but if we look at this principle,
Yeah.
like metaphorically,
Uh,
I think there's something to be said for the intensity of like the energy and passion that we often see in the fintech world.
I agree.
Like it's that drive, it's that like almost obsessive dedication to innovation that like pushes boundaries.
It's like they're obsessed.
Yeah, and it's like fuels like these groundbreaking advancements.
Like that's where they're putting all their energy.
Yeah, so maybe it's not about like literal sex transmutation.
Right.
Maybe it's about like the ability to harness that same level of like passion and intensity and focus and channel it towards like our financial goals.
It makes you think.
It makes you think. And ultimately it's up to each individual to like interpret this principle in a way that resonates with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to another principle, the power of the subconscious mind.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. And so Hill believed that this like powerful force operates beneath the surface.
Yeah, it's like the engine that's running in the background.
Yeah. And it influences like our actions and our thoughts.
Yeah.
And so he stressed the importance of feeding the subconscious mind
Wow.
with positive thoughts.
Like you're programming your mind
Yeah.
for success.
It's like if you constantly feed it doubts, fears, and limitations, that's what it's going to manifest.
Right, right.
But if you focus on your goals, believe in your abilities, and visualize your success,
It can help make it happen.
yeah, your subconscious mind will work tirelessly to make it happen.
I mean, it's so powerful.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And this ties back to like the principles of faith and autosuggestion,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like those are tools that we can use to like influence our subconscious mind.
It's true. It's like we have the power to shape our reality.
And remember, like fear and poverty, those are also like programs.
Oh,
They
yeah.
could be running in the background.
They got to reprogram.
You got to reprogram.
Yeah.
Okay, and finally, let's address the elephant in the room.
Okay.
The sixth basic fear, the fear of death.
This is a big one.
It's a big one. It's universal. Everyone has it.
Everyone.
But Hill offers a unique perspective.
Okay.
He believed that this fear is often fueled by like societal conditioning
Right.
and religious dogma.
Oh, interesting.
And so he encouraged people to confront this fear, maybe
Yeah.
through like the lens of science.
Okay.
And the understanding that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed.
It changes form.
Changes form, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's this reminder that like we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
And while our like physical bodies might perish,
Right.
our energy, our legacy, our impact on the world can live on.
It's like we leave a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, fintech homies, how can you use this understanding to like live a more courageous life?
A more impactful life.
A more impactful life. Yeah. Like, how can you channel that fear of death into like a motivator
I love that.
to make the most of your time here, to build something meaningful, to leave a lasting legacy, to like make a difference in the world of fintech
And beyond.
and beyond?
Yeah.
So those are like some pretty deep questions to ponder.
Yeah, they are.
And that brings us to the end of part 1.
Already.
Yeah, I know, right? It flew by.
We'll be back for part 2.
We'll be back for part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into Hill's principles and we'll explore like how they can be applied to like specific challenges and opportunities in the world of fintech.
And in our lives, too.
In our lives, yeah. And in the meantime, like reflect on what we talked about today.
Yeah, think about how it applies to your own journey.
Yeah, and let us know in the comments what you're thinking.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel
So you don't miss part 2.
so you don't miss part 2.
Yeah.
All right, see you in part 2, fintech homies.
See? Welcome back, Fintech homies. It's great to be diving back into Think and Grow Rich with you all.
I'm excited to keep exploring Hill's ideas, especially after that cliffhanger ending last time.
Definitely. It's amazing how relevant these principles still are, even though they were written decades ago.
Totally. And one thing that really stuck with me was Hill's whole chapter on fear.
Oh, yeah, the 6 ghosts of fear, right?
Exactly. He saw them as these like inner demons that can really hold us back.
It's like they're these invisible forces that can sabotage our success if we let them.
He specifically talks about fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death.
That pretty much covers all the bases.
Right. So how do these fears like play out in the world of fintech? And what can we do about them?
Well, let's start with the fear of poverty, because that's obviously a big one when it comes to finance.
Yeah, especially with all the volatility we see in the markets.
Exactly. And Hill believed that this fear often stems from a scarcity mindset.
That feeling that there's not enough to go around.
Right. Like if someone else wins, you automatically lose.
Which can lead to like cutthroat competition and a lack of collaboration.
Absolutely. But Hill argued that we can overcome this fear by cultivating an abundance mindset instead.
That belief that there's enough for everyone to succeed?
Exactly. Instead of seeing fintech as this like battleground, we can view it as a space for collaboration and co-creation.
So instead of just focusing on our own profits, we can think about how to create value for others too.
Exactly. And Hill believed that true wealth comes from creating value, solving problems, and making a positive impact on the world.
Which is what fintech should be all about.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the fear of criticism, because I think that's another one that can really hold people back in fintech.
Yeah, it's scary to put yourself out there, share your ideas, and risk being judged.
Especially in an industry that's like constantly innovating and pushing boundaries.
Right. Like, what if people think your idea is stupid?
Totally. But Hill believed that we can overcome this fear by developing a strong sense of self-belief and focusing on our own vision.
Basically, trusting your gut and not letting other people's opinions derail you.
Exactly. And it's helpful to surround yourself with a supportive network of people who believe in you and your vision.
Those people who can give you constructive feedback and encouragement, especially when you're feeling doubtful.
Exactly. And remember, the most groundbreaking innovations often come from those who dare to think differently and challenge the status quo.
So don't let the fear of criticism hold you back from sharing your ideas with the world. You never know what impact they might have.
Okay, what about the fear of ill health? Because that's another universal one.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and grind of fintech and neglect our well-being.
It's true. And Hill believed that this fear could be amplified by negative thinking and a preoccupation with symptoms.
Like when you read about some new health scare and suddenly start feeling every ache and pain.
Exactly. But Hill's advice was to focus on health and vitality, to nourish our bodies and minds with positive thoughts and habits.
So basically, taking care of ourselves is just as important as taking care of our businesses.
Absolutely. Because if we burn out, we're not going to be able to achieve anything.
Right. And good health is the foundation for everything else in life.
Exactly. Now, how about the fear of loss of love? That might seem a bit out of place in a book about financial success, but...
Well, I could see how it could relate to building relationships in the fintech world, like networking and collaboration.
Exactly. This fear could manifest as a reluctance to connect with others Maybe because of fear of rejection or judgment.
It's like we're afraid to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there.
Right. But Hill's advice was to cultivate self-love and focus on building genuine connections based on shared values and interests.
So basically finding your tribe of people who you can connect with on a deeper level.
Exactly. And approaching those connections from a place of authenticity and generosity rather than neediness or desperation.
Which can be hard, especially in a competitive field like fintech.
It's true. But building genuine relationships is essential for long-term success.
Okay, now what about the fear of old age? That's one that I think a lot of people struggle with, especially in a fast-paced industry like fintech.
Yeah, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind when you see all these young entrepreneurs making waves.
Totally. But Hill believed that this fear was rooted in a misconception about aging.
He believed that our later years could actually be our most productive and fulfilling.
So it's not about trying to stay young forever. It's about embracing the wisdom and experience that comes with age.
Exactly. And think about all the successful entrepreneurs who started their companies later in life. They bring a wealth of knowledge and a different perspective.
It's a good reminder that age is just a number. It's our mindset and our willingness to keep learning and growing that truly matter.
Okay, and finally, we have the fear of death, the big one.
Yeah, it's the ultimate fear. But Hill had a really interesting take on it.
He believed that this fear was often amplified by societal conditioning and a lack of understanding about the nature of energy and consciousness.
So instead of denying or avoiding this fear, he encouraged people to confront it and to understand that death is a natural part of life.
Exactly. And he even suggested that understanding the principles of energy transformation could help alleviate this fear.
That idea that energy can't be destroyed, only transformed.
Right. So while our physical bodies might cease to exist, our energy and our impact on the world can live on.
It's a powerful concept to think about, especially as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of the fintech world.
Definitely. So how can we use this understanding of the fear of death to live more courageously and to make a lasting impact? That's something for all of us to ponder.
It is. And that actually leads us to one of the most fascinating and maybe even a bit controversial principles in Think and Grow Rich.
You talking about the mystery of sex transmutation?
I am. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's definitely one of the most talked about and debated aspects of Hill's work. And it's important to remember that he was writing in a very different time. So some of his ideas might seem outdated or even offensive to modern readers.
Totally. And it's definitely a sensitive topic,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth exploring, even if it's just to understand where Hill was coming from.
Absolutely. So, for those who aren't familiar, the mystery of sex transmutation is Hill's belief that sexual energy is one of the most powerful forces in human experience, and that it can be consciously channeled or transmuted into other creative pursuits.
So it's not about suppressing or denying sexual desire, but rather redirecting that energy towards other goals and aspirations.
Exactly. And Hill believed that this transmutation process could lead to heightened creativity, productivity, and overall success in any field, including business and finance.
Now, I know this might sound a bit far-fetched to some people, but if we look at it metaphorically, I think there's something to be said for the power of passion and drive.
I agree. And I think we see that passion and drive in the fintech world all the time. The long hours, the relentless pursuit of innovation, the drive to create something truly groundbreaking. It's like all that energy is being channeled into something really powerful.
Exactly. So maybe it's not about literal sex transmutation, but rather the ability to harness that same level of intensity and focus and apply it to our financial goals.
It's an interesting perspective, and it definitely makes you think. Ultimately, it's up to each individual to interpret this principle in a way that makes sense to them.
All right, well, let's move on to something a bit more concrete and actionable. Organized planning.
Ah, yes. Planning. This is one of my favorite principles because it's so essential for success in any endeavor, but especially in the world of finance and business.
Yeah, Hill was very clear that wishful thinking won't get you very far. You need a solid plan, a roadmap to guide your actions and help you achieve your goals.
He uses the example of Charles Schwab, who had this grand vision for the future of the steel industry. He didn't just have a vague idea, he formulated a detailed plan that ultimately led to the creation of U.S. Steel, which became one of the largest corporations in the world.
That's a powerful example of how planning can lead to massive success. And Hill's point is that your achievements can be no greater than the soundness of your plans. This applies whether you're building a fintech startup, launching a new product, or even just managing your personal finances.
You need that clear vision, that strategy, that plan of action to guide you. And without a plan, you're just drifting, hoping for the best. But hope is not a strategy, especially in the fast-paced world of fintech.
So true. But plans shouldn't be set in stone, right?
No, they need to be flexible and adaptable, open to revision as circumstances change.
Which happens all the time in fintech where the landscape is constantly shifting.
Right. You have to be able to adjust to new technologies, new regulations, new market trends. It's all about being agile and responsive.
Hill illustrates this with the story of Samuel Insull, who built this huge fortune in the utility industry. But when the Great Depression hit, he had to pivot and adjust his strategy in order to survive.
It's a valuable lesson for all of us, especially in fintech, where things can change so quickly. We need to be able to assess the situation, refine our plans, and course correct when necessary. That's how we stay ahead of the curve.
So fintech homies, how are you approaching planning in your own financial endeavors? Do you have a solid plan in place, or are you just kind of winging it?
Because a good plan is like a roadmap. It helps you stay focused, make informed decisions, and navigate the inevitable challenges that will come up along the way.
It's about setting those clear goals, developing a strategy to achieve them, and breaking that strategy down into actionable steps, and being open to adapting those steps as needed.
Now, let's talk about another important principle, decision. Hill believed that the ability to make decisions quickly and decisively is essential for overcoming fear and achieving success.
He tells this compelling story about a man on death row who was surprisingly calm and composed, even in the face of his impending execution. And the reason for his tranquility was that he had made peace with his fate, he had accepted the decision that had been made for him, and this acceptance brought him a sense of inner peace.
It's a profound reminder that indecision often leads to paralysis and fear. The longer we dwell in a state of indecision, the more we allow fear to take root and cripple our ability to move forward. And in the fast-paced world of fintech, we can't afford to be paralyzed by indecision.
We have to be able to assess the situation, weigh the risks and rewards, and make a decision, even if it's a tough one. And the act of making that decision, even if it turns out to be the wrong decision, can be incredibly liberating.
Because it frees us from that feeling of being stuck. It allows us to learn, adapt, and move forward. Indecision feeds fear, while taking action, even imperfect action, helps us overcome that fear.
And I think this is especially important when it comes to investing. There's always going to be some level of risk involved, and it's easy to get caught up in analysis paralysis, overthinking every possible outcome. But at some point, you have to trust your gut, make a decision, and go for it.
You can't let the fear of making a mistake hold you back from taking action. So what financial decisions are you putting off out of fear? What opportunities are you missing out on because you're hesitant to make a move?
Those are some important questions to ask yourself. Now, speaking of action, let's talk about the principle of persistence.
Ah, yes, persistence. This is another one of my favorites because it's so crucial for success in any field, but especially in fintech, where there are going to be setbacks and challenges along the way.
Helio uses the inspiring example of Fannie Hurst, a writer who faced countless rejections before finally achieving success on Broadway. She didn't let those setbacks define her. She used them as fuel to keep pushing forward, keep honing her craft, keep believing in her vision.
And it's that unwavering belief, that refusal to give up that ultimately led to her success. It's a reminder that the road to success is rarely smooth. There are going to be bumps in the road, there are going to be detours, there are going to be times when you want to throw in the towel.
But it's during those tough times that persistence becomes your greatest asset. And you look at all the successful fintech companies out there, the ones that have become household names. They didn't achieve that overnight success without facing challenges and setbacks along the way.
They persevered, they adapted, they iterated, they kept going even when it was tough. And that's what allowed them to ultimately achieve their goals.
So what challenges are you currently facing in your fintech journey? How can you apply the principle of persistence to overcome those obstacles and move closer to where you want to be?
Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And success is rarely a straight line. There are going to be twists, turns, and unexpected detours along the way. But it's those who keep their eyes on the prize, who refuse to give up, who ultimately reach their destination.
And one of the best ways to cultivate that persistence is to surround yourself with a supportive community, a group of like-minded individuals who can lift you up and encourage you when you're feeling down. And that brings us to one of Hill's most important principles, the power of the mastermind.
Ah, the mastermind. I love this concept because it's so true. No one achieves great things alone. We all need that supportive network of people who believe in us, who challenge us, and who inspire us to be our best.
Hill defines the mastermind as A friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through with both plan and purpose. It's about creating a synergy of energy, ideas, and support.
And there's no better example of the power of the mastermind than Henry Ford and his incredible circle of friends. Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, John Burroughs, Luther Burbank. These were some of the most brilliant minds of their time, and they all supported and encouraged each other to achieve greatness.
They bounced ideas off each other, they collaborated on projects, they celebrated each other's successes, and they helped each other through challenges. It's amazing to think about the collective impact they had on the world.
And the Fintech Homies community, I believe, is a perfect example of the mastermind principle in action. It's a place where people can connect with each other, share their ideas, learn from each other's experiences, and support each other on their fintech journeys.
Absolutely. So, who are you connecting with in the fintech space? Who are your mentors, your collaborators, your trusted advisors? Because remember, you don't have to go alone. There are people out there who want to see you succeed. And by connecting with them and building those relationships, you can tap into the collective wisdom and support of the mastermind.
Now, let's revisit the concept of imagination. But this time, let's focus on how it connects to our intuition, to that sixth sense that Hill believed was key to breakthrough ideas.
Yet Hill believed that our imagination is much more than just a tool for daydreaming or escapism. It's a powerful faculty that can be used to solve problems, generate creative solutions, and even tap into a deeper level of knowing.
He distinguishes between two types of imagination, synthetic and creative. The synthetic imagination is all about taking existing ideas and combining them in new and innovative ways. It's the foundation of problem solving and incremental innovation. But the creative imagination is something different altogether.
It's about tapping into that source of inspiration, connecting with our intuition, and allowing those truly innovative ideas to emerge. It's about those aha moments when we see things from a new perspective and come up with solutions that we never would have thought of before.
And Hill believed that the creative imagination can be cultivated and strengthened through practice, through consciously seeking out inspiration, and through trusting our gut instincts. He uses the example of Thomas Edison, who famously tried over 10,000 combinations before finally perfecting the light bulb. He didn't give up, he kept experimenting, he kept trusting his intuition, and eventually he achieved a breakthrough that changed the world.
So, fintech homies, are you actively exercising your imagination? Are you challenging the status quo, exploring new possibilities, and allowing yourself to dream big? Because in the fast-paced world of fintech, those who can imagine the future are the ones who shape it.
And that brings us to one of the most profound and perhaps most misunderstood principles in Think and Grow Rich, the subconscious mind.
Hill believed that our subconscious mind is an incredibly powerful force that operates beneath the surface of our conscious awareness, influencing our thoughts, beliefs, habits, and ultimately our reality.
And he stressed the importance of feeding the subconscious mind with positive, empowering thoughts, because he believed that whatever we consistently focus on, whether positive or negative, will eventually manifest in our lives.
He even compares the subconscious mind to a garden. If we plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, that's what will grow. But if we plant seeds of hope, belief, and abundance, that's what we'll harvest.
And he provides specific techniques for influencing the subconscious mind, like autosuggestion and visualization. Autosuggestion is about repeatedly affirming our desired beliefs and outcomes until they become ingrained in our subconscious.
While visualization involves creating vivid mental images of ourselves achieving our goals, feeling the emotions of success, and acting as if it's already happened. And while these techniques might seem simple, they're incredibly powerful when practiced consistently.
Countless successful individuals, including many pioneers in the fintech space, have attributed their achievements to the mastery of their subconscious mind. They understand that our thoughts create our reality, and by consciously choosing empowering thoughts and beliefs, we can shape our destiny.
So fintech homies, what thoughts and beliefs are you feeding your subconscious mind? Are you programming it for success or for limitation? Because your subconscious is a powerful ally, and it will work tirelessly to manifest whatever you focus on. So choose wisely.
And as we start to wrap up our exploration of Think and Grow Rich, it's important to remember that knowledge without action is useless. Hill was very clear that it's not enough to just read books, attend conferences, or listen to podcasts. You have to take what you've learned and put it into practice.
You have to experiment, iterate, take calculated risks, and be willing to fail and learn along the way. Because the fintech world is dynamic and ever-changing. It's a landscape that rewards those who are bold, innovative, and willing to take action.
So what's one action you can take today, right now, to move closer to your financial goals? What's one step you can take to turn your dreams into reality?
Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. What are you waiting for, Fintech homies? Fintech homies, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive.
Back into Think and Grow Rich, yeah.
We've covered a lot, but there's still some juicy bits left.
Oh, there are.
Like this whole idea of auto-suggestion. What was Hill getting at there?
Basically, it's like purposefully planting thoughts in our minds, repeating them over and over.
So they sink in deep, right? Like programming our subconscious for success.
Exactly, instead of those negative beliefs that can hold us back.
This kind of reminds me when we talked about the psychology of investing. Our emotions can mess things up. Right?
Oh, for sure. Hill was onto something with how powerful our thoughts are.
If we want to win with money, got to get our minds right first.
100%. And auto-suggestion, it's a way to do that.
Didn't he have a formula for, like, building confidence using this?
He did. Writing down your goals, memorizing them, repeating them daily.
Like hammering it into your brain.
Until it's just part of you.
So much of this goes back to faith, too. Believing in yourself and your vision.
Absolutely. And it's not just wishing, it's aligning your actions, too.
Walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Before we wrap up, one last thought from Hill that I love. Success is more than just the money.
It's got to be meaningful, fulfilling.
Yeah.
That's what makes it worthwhile, right?
Yeah, making a difference, leaving something behind.
Fintech homies, as you're out there hustling, remember what we talked about. That burning desire, planning, persistence, the mastermind, all of it.
It's a recipe for a life well lived, not just a fat bank account.
This deep dive has been awesome. Learned a ton. Hope you all did too.
Same here. It's been great sharing these ideas.
Now hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss more content like this.
And drop a comment. Tell us your takeaways. What resonated with you?
Until next time, Fintech homies, keep thinking big, keep growing, and keep crushing it.
The power to achieve your dreams is within you. Go get them.